Welcome to Weird Crafts. I'm Terry, and today I'm going to demonstrate for you one of our felt cookie kits. This is the Christmas. Included in the kit is your foam felting block, your cookie cutter shapes, your wool roving for each kit, and you'll have an assortment of felting needles in a case that you can reuse, keeps your needles nice and safe, and a magnet that you can cut up to use on the back of your shapes. So we're going to get started. So we're going to loosen up the wool, get it nice and fluffy, and we're going to start getting it into the shape. You don't have to worry about defining the lines in between the colors just yet. We'll get to that in a little bit. Just going to start with our 36 triangular. It has the red tip. Great size to get started with this project. We're just going to poke this in place just a little bit. And you see I'm going to use the tip to kind of move those fibers into place where I want them, just to give them a little poke so I can see what I'm doing over here. Then I'm going to do the next color, which is the brown, the main part of the face. I'm going to loosen that up really nicely. Get that in there. Whoops. Start poking that down. Kind of want to bring that all the way up to this point right here in between the antlers. You're going to want your brown to go up there. So just bring your wool up. See how that's starting to create that separation between the colors. Then I'm going to put the cocoa in for the bottom part of the face. I'm just going to start working that in. Now you just want to poke the tip of the needle into this. If you poke further in, you're going to adhere it to your foam block. The felting needles are very sharp, so please be careful. They have barbs on the end of those, and the barbs grab the fibers and rub them up against one another, and they lock, and that's how you get a solid felted piece. So I'm going to give this a little scrub because I'm sure it's starting to adhere already. It's very loose, but I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to make a pass across all of this. Some of the things that you want to remember is you always want to go completely around the edges up against the cookie cutter. That will give you nice crisp edges in the end. And then make a pass across the open area. And then you'll flip it. After I make a pass across this area, I am going to add more wool. So we're going to save just a little bit of the white because we're going to want that as a highlight for the eyes and the nose. And then the rest of it, we're going to go ahead and get into the shape. I'm going to turn this back around so it's facing you. You can see here what I'm doing. And I'm just going to keep adding more wool and flipping after each time I make a pass with the needle, being careful to go around all of the edges. So I have felted this and flipped it at least a dozen times right now. And I want to just kind of show you how that's starting to come together. If you're really patient, it'll happen. So at this point, I've made at least a dozen more passes over it, and it's really tightening up. It's really shaping up. I want to show you a few things that you can do to really sharpen these edges. You can very carefully go around and poke in there to define like the edges of your ears. Also, when you still have it in the cookie cutter, you might want to add more wool right in the tips of those and just keep going around there, cleaning them up. I've gone right here in between the antlers. That gives it a nice little sharp line. Another thing that you can do to clean this up is to just take some very sharp little shears here, get some of these wilder fibers, and you can see what a nice job that does of cleaning up the edges, how much nicer that looks already. So we're gonna move forward, although I would normally just keep felting this because I like mine to be nice and tight like this one is, the finished product. So all that involves is just several more passes, front and back, to get that nice and tight. So we are gonna go ahead and put the nose on. We're gonna take some of this red wool roving and we're just gonna roll it into a ball. And don't worry if it's too big, because once we get it in there, it's going to shrink a lot. So we're just gonna poke right down there in the center to get it pinned down into place. And then we're just gonna start working around the edges. You know, I think I'm gonna switch my needle right now. The higher the number on the needle, the finer it is, and it's gonna leave smaller holes. So we're gonna go to the 40, which is the green, and just gonna really just work this in a circle. It's almost like I'm drawing a circle with the needle. Oops, see, I poked in too deep and it got stuck. I think that's a sweet little nose. I like that it's puffed up. You can flatten yours down a little bit if you like, but there's something about that 3D look on this little guy that I really like. Just gonna kind of even that out a little bit, flatten it just a little, give it a nice even shape. Let's see here. Yep. Just gonna keep going in a spiral. Get that shape in place. So now we're gonna do just that little white highlight, and I'm gonna take a tiny little bit of the white. Just gonna kind of twist it in my fingers to make that little teardrop shape. Fold it over on itself once. I'm gonna try to do this upside down, so bear with me. I'm gonna just start poking that in, trying to get my fingers out of the way so that you can see. Doesn't look like much right now, but it'll get there. And just keep tucking those fibers in with the tip of the needle. And be patient, and you'll get that shape. Going to give it that little curve by poking in from one side. I'm going to clean up the edges. I'm going to trim that just a little bit to make quick work out of it. After all, this is a beginner's kit. We don't want you to get frustrated. We want you to have fun. There's a little highlight right there on his nose. So next we're gonna do the eyes. When I do the eyes, I try to figure out an even amount of roving for each one. That's pretty close, maybe a little bit more on this, so that I'm not working against myself trying to roll these. And just gonna wrap that around my finger, kind of make a little bit of a spiral shape. Form it into a ball. And I'm just gonna start working it in there. Again, just like the nose, it looks way too big. Doesn't look like much right now, but I'm just gonna keep working in a circle. And make sure I get a nice space in between it. So I'm gonna eye that just like that. I'm gonna move this over, literally just by redirecting the needle. Now you can come in from the side, but make sure you're still going straight in and out so that you don't bend and break the tip of the needle. I'm just going to keep working on this one until I get the shape that I like. I'm going to face it towards me so I can get a better idea here of how it's going. Okay, so we have that eye in place. Just keep working at it. We're going to put the little highlight in just like we did the nose, and I'm going to put a little bit of the cocoa right here in the ear. Just start working that in a little teardrop shape. So I finished the other side, got the highlights in the eyes, filled in the insides of the little ears. And some of the points that I want to make is this continues to get felted. It's really going to sharpen up. So some of the things you can do to get these lines defined is literally just start working exactly where you want that line to be. And it really sharpens up. I went around the eyes several times to kind of make them more elongated. And I just kept working along there. The same thing with the highlight. If you want that curve, just work that in a curved line. You can see how it's still cleaning that up, making it look nicer with each pass. I reworked around the nose. I just kept going into the sides till I got that shape just how I wanted it. Made it a little bit smaller. Kind of pulled it up and fluffed it and made it more 3D. So now I'm going to go and I'm going to clean up this line in between the head and the antlers, the top of the head and the antlers. Just going to keep felting there to sharpen that up. Going to go in from the side, keep working. And pretty soon, it's going to look just like this, and you'll be finished. Thank you for stopping by Weir Crafts.